And here we are. It's the penultimate of the second series, the second lockdown series of Equidance Live. Welcome. I hope you've had a good week. We've all had some better news this week, of course, because we know things are coming to an end. We can see light at the end of the tunnel. Well, let's hope so anyway. Fingers crossed. For those of you who already had your vaccines, congratulations and well done. I'm 47 years old and I'm really pleased to hear today that I'll be in the next group of people to receive mine. So happy days. It looks like we're actually finally coming to an end. So we can all start to think about the future and what is going on with our competitions and our riding and get a bit joyous and hopeful. Well, let's hope so. If you haven't had such a good week, I'm really sorry to hear that. Okay, right, here we go. So, of course, as normal, in order for people to see this show, please share it. It's quite simple. You can either put a watch party in, or you can share this feed now with a group of people, or in a page, or in a group, or whatever you want to do. But if that's great, you can do that right now. It means that as many people can watch this as possible. Obviously, the traction's been great. The response has been fantastic. We have had the best guests over this series. Well, and the last series, but this series especially, that we could possibly imagine. And of course, the list goes on, because tonight we've got Dr. Russell Guire. Actually, it's not just Russell Guire, no, it's Dr. Russell MacKechnie-Guire. MacKechnie, he's going to really tell me off for that in a minute, because he can hear what I'm saying. But I didn't know that until earlier this week, so that's why it wasn't in the menu. So anyway, Dr. Russell from Centaur Biomechanics. How cool is that? We've had some of the top people in the business on, and hopefully if you've got any questions for Dr. Russell this evening, unlike before, please just put them in the comments. We've already had one from Marcel Ward. Thank you, Marcel, about the narrow twist saddle research. I shall be asking him about that in a bit, but please put your questions down in the thread on this video. Mrs. Equidance is just putting the young ones to bed, and she will collate them when she comes down and pass them over to me later on in the interview. So fabulous. What other news have we got to give? Horse World. That's our charity that we choose to support. And of course, we're going to continue to support them. Horse World are absolutely amazing with the work they do with horse rescue, rehoming, and also the work they do with kids in Bristol with riding. So if you can help at all, that would be amazing. And I've got a text to give number here for Horse World. Let me just show you. If you could please help, because of course this show, we've done it for absolutely nothing, nada, no money exchange hands. All the adverts that you might have seen on the holding screen, that's no money, that's just friends of ours. Well, actually a little bit of a lie. Shaw's Iberian have given us a little bit of wine, which is what I'm enjoying right here this evening as well. But apart from that, it's just people that we know and love. So we're just sharing his interests, and of course we did the videos, so that's pretty cool. But if you want to donate to help, to just say thank you for what we've done over the series, or over the last two series, we don't want any money. We just would like you to give it to Horse World, and you can just donate £3 by texting Horse World to 70085. That's £3 texting to Horse World, HORSEWOILD, all one word, to 70085. And do you know what? You can do it more than once. And also, do you know what? If you want to give more than £3 or £6 or £9 or £12 or £15, then you can actually just go to Horse World and you can donate whatever you like, monthly or as a one-off. And we please would love you to do that. Thank you. Great. Because it's all about positivity. It's all about helping each other out. And it's all about making sure everyone is coming out of lockdown in a positive fashion. Brilliant. Is there any other news? I don't think there is, actually. There is no more news this week. It's as simple as that, apart from to say that, of course, we were going to have Tristan Tucker on this week, but very luckily, we had Russell, who was going to do next week, who agreed to come on this week, and there's a very good reason for that. Tristan Tucker's just had a baby. Now, I don't know the news yet, so I can't share anything apart from they're having a baby, but I know that that was not possible to come on this week, of course, but hopefully, all being well, we'll be accepting on to the show next week. So there we go. But without further ado, I'm going to bring onto the screen here, as if by magic, and bring onto the sound as well, Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell, are you there?
Hi there, how are you? Good evening.
Oh, I can't hear you. Hang on. No, I can.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Ah, great. I hope you can all hear him okay. Here he is. Look at this. Look at that amazing picture behind you. Is that a green screen or is that actually a giant poster?
That is, well, now you're going to give my trade secrets away, but now that is a giant poster, floor to ceiling poster of Lord Pharaoh, that is.
Oh my goodness me. Do you know what? It looks much better than a green screen because I can see your hair.
Now you had to pick out the lockdown haircut.
No, yeah, you see, that was a good link. I was just doing that link. It's like lockdown hair. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, from last week, I now look a little bit more like Tom Hardy, I think. You know, I'm looking a bit more slick because Mrs. Equidance got the dog clippers on me and it's looking good. How have you coped?
Well, no, clearly we haven't. I've had to glue this bad boy down for this evening's public appearance because I've actually just got a baseball cap this morning. I've had to go to the baseball cap because it is like in the morning, it's just out here. It's like crazy. So this evening I've glued it down well, we'll go to the salon, I guess, in April, isn't it? So goodness knows what it's going to look like then.
So there you go, listen, you heard it here first. Even the scientists get bedhead. It's true. I know, because my wife's a scientist and she looks like a flipping bird's nest. Did I just say that? I did, didn't I?
I think you just did.
I think she's putting the kids together. I might have got away with that. I might have just got away with that. I might just get slapped a little bit later. Anyway, so how has this period been for you, Russell? I mean, I know it's an odd time for us because we haven't really been able to go and travel because the clients haven't been able to go to arenas with horses. We've been able to go and see private clients, but there's not that many really who've got the right size arenas who want music right now. But how have you coped with this whole scenario?
Well, it's intriguing really because, putting aside the horrific part of the pandemic, which is absolutely just horrific and just unbearable, there's parts of it that I've actually quite enjoyed in the sense of just having someone hit the stop button on the Centaur adventure or Centaur journey wagon, and it just gave me a lot of time to reflect and just think about using time more optimally. So there's been a lot of reflection, but in terms of what have I been doing, well, when it first started and Boris made his announcement in March, I was like, oh crumbs, like most of us, what are we going to do? So I was out running, I think at like 5:30 in the morning, and I came back and I ran up the stairs like, right, Eric, we're going to move everything online. And he was like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? And I said, don't know yet, but we're just going to do it. And I have to say, it was, I'd never done a webinar prior to the pandemic. And now, to date, we've done webinars presented all over the world. It's given me a new perspective on being able to get our research out to multiple people across the globe. And with that, we're helping to improve equine welfare, equine comfort, and advancing knowledge. So on that front, it's been a huge learning curve and been very successful. But yeah, so that's how I've been coping, is writing webinars, writing papers, processing data. I did have one, bad patch where it's like, oh crumbs, what am I going to do? So I dusted off the hard drives and processed some data from 2010, and I wrote the paper on that, so that kept me entertained for a couple of months.
Oh, I'll tell you what, these flipping academics. My missus started a PhD, so yes, it's all. I was expecting you to say you'd started another PhD, but clearly you've got plenty of papers to write and plenty of data to process. But for those of you, and some of them are like this: data process, research, papers. They don't know what we're talking about, but the online stuff, I know that's been cool for us too. I mean, look what we're doing right now. This was born out of, I need a project. And I also felt that a whole load of people out there needed something to keep them engaged and focused and inspired. So you've been doing exactly the same, just to more academic types, whereas I've been talking to the sort of stable types who like drinking a glass of wine and probably have bedhead all day long, like I do normally if I'm not on air.
I have bedhead most days. That's why I say the hat's coming to force now, because the gel is just not cutting the mustard.
Oh, that's absolutely superb. Right, we're going to wind it right back now, Russell. Okay, so I'm going to pretend I've been doing my research, but I'm going to pretend from our punter's point of view as I know nothing about you. Where did you come from? What was the idea and how did it all come about? We're talking obviously about Centaur. How did it all come about? Where did it begin?
So when did it all begin? Well, I started my education at Warwickshire College. I came to Warwickshire in 2000, did my national diploma, and then I did my first degree. And then within that period, I was doing multiple work experiences, and I've always been fascinated with movement. Like when I was growing up, I used to study my dogs. I used to even, like, weirdly, I used to trot them up and observe them, and like get my dad to trot them up, and like, that's weird, isn't it?
Well, that's a passion straight away, isn't it?
I used to pretend my bike was a horse, and I'd study the wheels going round and round, like, okay. So anyway, I'm not sure why I said that, but hey ho.
No, that's fine. I understand these oddities because I was similar with sound and music. So you carry on.
Okay. So anyway, I was at university, and I probably need to backtrack slightly, but I had chronic dyslexia, and when I was 9, I couldn't read or write, and I was a little bit like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? Not I, my family was. So anyway, ended up getting relocated to a special school that only had 50 students, and basically I was there for 5 years, and pretty much got me on the track, but still obviously dyslexic.
Well, you were one of the lucky ones, because back then it wasn't really recognised, you know.
Absolutely.
I was at a public school, and I was never diagnosed with ADHD until I was older, which I now know is an absolute gift for creativity. But that back then, I was the awkward child.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I was that child and more, as like a lot of people.
But it wasn't. We weren't really recognised, so you were lucky to be put in a place where you could thrive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I don't quite. I need to really talk to my family and ask what the triggering point was. But I think it was probably not being able to read or write. And then so got sent to this school, the old rectory in Brettenham, Suffolk. Family relocated, and boy, gosh, it was amazing. From what I still fondly remember those days. And anyway, I finished my education, passing some exams, not all of them because of my dyslexia.
Sure.
Came to Warwickshire, did my degree, and at the time I was thinking, oh, what degree should I do? I think I should just do this one because of my learning difficulties. And I thought, no, screw it, push yourself, let's see what we can do.
Yes.
So I enrolled on a scientific degree, like, oh crumbs, why? And that was really my passion. So once I started studying science and started looking at movement applied with horses, I was like, crikey, O'Reilly, this is amazing. I understand it, I can see the data. So anyway, so I then was in a lecture in 2005. Someone from cycling came in, and they gave a presentation on how they were using biomechanics for cycling, and all I could see was the cyclist's legs going round, and I was like, that's like a horse's legs. Why can't we quantify movement in horses? So I rang the company up straight after the lecture and said, right, I'm really keen to set up my own company, and I want to use your software. And he said, you're an undergrad, don't worry, you're not gonna be able to do that. So bye. Well done. Nice idea. And my philosophy, right from when I couldn't read or write, was like, no is not acceptable. Find a solution.
Yes.
So I Googled a competitor of his, and I went straight to that company and said, hi, I'm XYZ. I haven't left university, but I'm leaving in 2 months' time, and I'm really keen to set up my own company quantifying movement in horses. And they were like, okay, let's chat. So I graduated in August and set up Centaur Biomechanics the day after.
Oh my God, that for me is just sets me on fire. That's the sort of story we love. That's very similar to our story, both Kelly and I. Just push doors and make it happen. No is never enough. We've just got to make stuff happen. And if you love it and you really want it, just go for it. What a fantastic story. So you got to that point, you got access to the software.
Yep. So I bought the software. I took out a small loan to be able to fund the starting up. So that I left, like most students, with nothing.
Yeah, of course.
Like no money. I was working at a swimming pool, cleaning the decks, the pool, at a local hotel. So no money and just, jumping straight out of university. Let's set up a business. Why not? Crazy idea. If anyone asked me now, I'd be like, crazy. But so I did that. So that's where it literally started.
Yeah, but I mean, students are coming out of uni now in sort of 40, 50, 60 grand's worth of debt. So they're already in debt before they even get going, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that, that fear factor of you've got nothing, you've got to go and get a career because that's what we have to do. And you're like, crumbs, how's it going to work? And my goal was I wanted to leave the pool, the hotel, within 6 months of starting up, and I finished on 5 months and 3 weeks. So I was like, check in.
Fabulous. Now, the first part, when you started that company, what was the first focus and the first specialism of what you were doing?
So originally, the whole focus was looking at equine locomotion. So that's primarily just looking at how can we help reduce injury risk, and so that's where I started. But then rapidly thought, okay, we need to look at other aspects. So then we started looking at the rider system and then the saddle interaction. And I'm not going to lie, I've had a lot of luck along the way, and I'm very grateful for everyone that supported the Centaur adventure. Who, there's so many people. But yeah, primarily looking at the horse. That was, where I was looking first.
So the model of your business, was it mainly research based, or is there a kind of clinic element to it back then? How did you actually make an income?
Well, you're now exposing me, because I'd love to give you the answers, but there was not that much structure at the time. People say to me, "What was your business plan like?" I was like, get up, work really hard from 6 in the morning to 11 at night, and repeat.
Do you know what? You can't go wrong with that, Russell. That's like a really good way of doing things.
That's what someone said to me. Said, just work hard. And I was like, well, I do that day and night. I love working hard. So no, there was no real structure. But to answer your question a little bit more detailed, yes, there was clinics in place. So I'd go out and look at horses and riders at the time. And then it just rapidly, came more evident that was a strategy that was good. But then the research really took hold in 2008. And so I started in 2006. The research really took hold in 2008, 2009, which you'll be aware is a couple of years before the London Olympics. Yeah. And we were involved in a project that was, on the run up to that, to the Olympic Games.
So it's fabulous. Now, this software, without getting too scientific for everyone out there, now, how is this visual analysis software? How does it work?
Well, at the time, we put markers on the horse, or the rider, or, I've even put markers on other species now, but we'll stay with the horse. I won't digress.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about the other species later. It's fine.
Yeah. So basically, in a very simple model, we will put markers on the joints, trot the horse up, and then the system will measure how much each joint is flexing, the speed at which it's flexing, the stride length. So in a research setting, we can quantify, we can compare, for example, one saddle between another saddle. But I say that system because since we've evolved, technology's evolved, we've now got multiple systems that are super cool. Like I even strap my phone on my thigh and can measure the amount of rotation in my rising.
What, using the accelerometer?
Accelerometers, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And we've even galloped 10 racehorses up the gallops with my smartphone on to measure stride length. It only worked on 5 horses because the phone flinged off. But yeah, so technology is amazing, I think, clearly.
Well, technology is moving really fast. I mean, I noticed when I was looking through some of your earlier videos, and it was very kind of like flicker style slow motion. And now you and I can do that on our iPhone 11s.
Absolutely. And I think, sorry.
Yeah, in really high definition. And it's like, wow, yeah.
I think at the time I was capturing at around 120 frames per second.
Yeah, quarter speed.
Now we're capturing over 300 frames per second.
And
with the MoCat, and we use one version of MoCat, and there's a 3D system that we have access to, and so it really is, I'm really excited. I gave a presentation this morning to a group. I think we're in a generation where it's actually really exciting that we can ask specific questions related to equine welfare and help with that information, advance knowledge to improve the lives of horses, which I think is hugely exciting.
Now, this is the main reason why we have you on. If anyone notices, actually, you look through all our guests, it's all horse-centric. It's all about horse welfare. It's all about how the horses are doing and how we can look after them. Because, of course, they can't tell us. Well, they can kind of tell us by their moods, but they can't tell us directly by communicating. So we need to use all the toolkits we can to ensure these amazing animals that we love are in the best of health. So just talk us through a few of the things that you use to ensure that we can make that happen.
Do you mean what I use in terms of technology?
Yeah, well, technology and practical.
Okay, so like obviously technology, we use the motion capture. We are fortunate that we have access to pressure mapping systems that go underneath the saddle. Or
I was going to ask you about them later. That looks incredible.
Okay, we'll come on to that later. Yeah. But in terms of the horse, I always have a saying that I've presented all over multiple years. The horse can feel a fly. Why can he not feel a rider that is crooked or a saddle that doesn't fit or whatever? And the answer is they can, but they just develop a strategy to compensate. And so they can still perform, but the key bit is, what does that compensation strategy do? And that's what we're starting to really look at now. I got some cool data where we put sensors along the horse's spine to look at just how the back changes with different riding positions. And it's really interesting, just how you alter your position, what the strategy the horse adopts to compensate. So I think one of the things I really look at is horses' posture, horses' facial expressions during training.
Wow.
Or just yeah, and there's a lot of work being done by other researchers looking at facial expressions. And I think this is something as horse people that we do instinctively. But I think this is something we really must, I said it earlier, we must appreciate and respect the animal that is in front of us. They can feel a fly. They're they're a miracle of bioengineering when you think of their structures. But with that, we have a responsibility to ensure that we do everything we can within our powers to ensure that everything is good.
And it's wonderful. We've already had Dr. David Marlin on, as you know, and we had Gillian as well on, talking about horses inside out, showing the kind of structure of the horse and its kind of exoskeleton on the outside, so you can picture it and visualize what's going on. I mean, these animals, when they jump 1.5 meters, it's phenomenal. So I guess you've been collecting data of movement from all the joints and pressure points while these things happen and collating it via software. Can you model that as well? I mean, in a 3-dimensional way, or?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of the work that's being done by other groups, is looking at modelling. I'm fortunate to say, you name it, we can do it in terms of a locomotor perspective. There are other groups, very good groups around the globe, that are doing equally interesting, fascinating, impactful research in their area. And I think that is where it's so exciting. We've got all of this evidence that's coming in that can be assessed and then implemented.
Now, one thing I know is that you did come up with some kind of, I think it was quite a while ago, a range of clothes which had kind of horizontal and vertical lines on it to help with rider position, which made it really easy to see from the ground or from the mirror whether you were riding straight or not. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was in 2009 I came up with that idea, and that was again just driving down the motorway, and I thought, that would be interesting. And so by the time I got back, I drove to Sainsbury's and spoke to one of my good friends and got her to sew on some lines, and then I was testing it. So yeah, basically it's just a very simple idea with lines positioned on a jacket, and it just cuts away the noise of other items, so you get a nice streamlined effect of the rider. And what we've shown previously in another study is that you can look at an image, and you will take away from that image, but you may miss some other detail, just the way it works.
Right.
And so by changing the image with some lines, your brain then takes in that visual feedback in a different manner. And the idea is if you take it in, then you can make a correction. So it's just a very simple tool. And that one idea now is sold, I think, in now 11 different countries. We have distributors in 11 different countries, and it's still going strong now.
Oh, so you did quite well with that one then.
yeah. That was a fun project or still is a fun project to be doing.
Now, a friend of mine asked me earlier today, he said, ask Russell, when you put the markers on the horse, I think it's kind of like ping pong balls or white markers so that the cameras can pick it up and it can translate to the software. Is that similar to the software they use for animation?
Yeah, exactly the same. So 3D motion capture would be exactly the same as or similar concept to what they would use for the animation. Yes, exactly.
So how do you compensate for the skin movement over the joints while that's happening?
Yeah, good question. And there's been a lot of research looking at skin displacement, and that's something we take into account with the system. The markers that are lower down on the limb, so distal, there tends to be very little skin variation. So those markers we would use a lot, versus ones that are higher up, for example, on the stifle or the elbow or the point of shoulder, where there's more skin displacement, we perhaps wouldn't use those as much. But the software has ways of correcting for skin displacement now.
Oh, that's amazing.
I just have to put my doggy down.
Oh, no, who is the doggy? Show us the dog.
This is Princess Wurzelina.
Hello, Princess Wurzelina. We've got a cat called Mrs. Bigglesworth. I shall call her in a bit.
She's sadly completely deaf, bless her, but she's an absolute monster.
Okay, in that case, I'll just do this.
Yeah, so she's going now. She'll be back in a minute. She'll be jumping up my leg.
Oh, bless her. How many dogs have you got?
So we have Princess Wurzelina and we have the Duchess de Gowan.
You couldn't write this stuff. Only for you, Russell. It had to be.
She keeps growling at Wurzel, and Wurzel can't hear her, so she just sits on Gowan. So we have two dogs, and they don't really like each other, but that's okay. They cope with each other.
Okay, back to horses.
Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. This is exactly why we're here. We want to see the whole Russell, not just the scientist Russell. So this is fabulous stuff. Let me talk a little bit about the more kind of granular data you're getting from pressure points on the saddle pads. This is really exciting, right? Now, why are you doing this? I mean, is it just to find out whether saddles fit correctly, or which saddles fit correctly, or are people riding incorrectly? What's the reason here? What's going on?
Well, multiple reasons, all of the above of what you've said. But I think we are in a world where the technology's moved on, great. Manufacturing capabilities have moved on, great. So with that, we can improve equine welfare, as I've discussed. But what we're really looking at is, yes, the saddle fits, but can it fit any better? Is there anything else we can do with saddle redesign, saddle remodifications to help reduce any of those pressures? I think what we have to accept is the minute you get on the horse's back, you're adding a dynamic load that the horse has to cope with, the saddle and obviously the dynamics of the rider. So we cannot eliminate saddle pressures. We have to accept this. But what we can do is check where the distribution of pressure is, that there's no design that is causing high pressures. For example, I think one of your viewers was saying at the base in the T10, T13 region. And we know so much more now through the research that we have done and other research labs, that the effects pressures have on muscle, and that's what we're trying to eliminate or reduce to the best of our ability.
So are you working with saddle manufacturers and designers with this? I mean, are they willing to work with you, or is this early days?
Well, I've been going since 2006. We've been doing this sort of research since 2007.
Yeah.
But obviously there are some manufacturers that are engaged with this research. But the great thing is all of our work and others is published. And I think, we're hopefully collectively, as our group and others, are raising the bar of awareness. So what then happens is other manufacturers observe this and then make alterations based on some of the new information coming out. So yes, we do work with some manufacturers, but the information is available for all to see through the publications.
Because you've got a pressure point pad that goes underneath the saddle, right? Am I correct in this? So these are variable sensor points. And how many points are there? Are we talking 32, 64, 128?
Over 200.
Wow. Okay, so it is quite granular. So you've got a real good impression of what's going on the back of the horse, and use multiple riders, multiple saddles. That's a lot of data.
Yeah, so I think so the pressure mat is divided in two, and it spans the whole of the horses, the saddle panel on the left and the right, so we can measure the whole of the area that the saddle is in contact with the back. It doesn't go down to the sides. And in terms of the research study design, yes, we are looking at, I think any project we do, we will finish the day with nearly 10,000 files to analyze.
So I mean, for each pressure point, what's the dynamic range? I mean, is it like 16 different pressure points or something like that?
Yeah, so there's multiple pressure points all the way across the mat, and they're giving us peak force, mean force, giving us the time of loading. Yeah, lots of outcomes.
That's a lot of data. So you ended up with a massive spreadsheet of numbers, which then you've got to correlate back into. Obviously, you can get the images. The computer can make that, but then you've got to make something of it. So, what conclusions have you had that have been groundbreaking so far with the saddle technology?
So I should just say that the pressure mat is not owned by myself, and it's operated by Mark Fisher, and previously Mark would always pull off the data, but since my PhD, Mark's now handing me the laptop, so I end up going home with the 10,000 files. And as you rightly say, they need to be analysed, and then, as you rightly say, we then get numbers off for each pass. And so, yes, I've got a spreadsheet here to the right of me, and we end up with streams of data. That all needs to be coded, and then that all needs to be run through a statistical package. And that is what we're looking at. So
where's what have we got? Well, come on. What's the dirt? What's happening here? What are, in your eyes, as what you've been doing now for many, many years, where are we going wrong with saddles?
I don't know if we're going wrong. I think we're getting better.
That's a good answer. What a diplomatic answer there. I like that.
But I just want to take a half halt here, because I think one of our most groundbreaking projects was in 2009, where we quantified girth pressures, and no one in the world had done this. And as I said earlier, alluded to the London Olympics. And if we asked your viewers tonight, where is girth pressures? Some will say that it's on the sternum, and that's what we thought at the time. But actually, the girth pressures we found were directly behind the horse's elbows. So that was the first, that's interesting. So that's challenging, the anecdotal beliefs. And then what was also interesting was that we showed in that study that if we reduced pressures under the girth, this is associated with increased locomotion. And which bit of the horse, Tony, do you think increased the locomotion the most, the forelimbs or the hind limbs?
No, he's asking me now. It's going to be the hot limbs. Come on.
We're going to flip it round now. I'm interviewing you.
No. I am no scientist. That's my wife's job. If she was here, she could save me right now and give me a little aside. But no, just
front or back, 50-50.
Oh, okay. What, from the girth? Yeah. From the girth pressure? Well, most people would say front, so I'm going to say rear.
Oh, always one.
Back of the net.
Yeah. No, so I thought it would be forelimbs because the girth is located in that region.
Sure.
And then I was, had a quiet time, so I analysed the data for the hind limbs, which took about 6 months, and we found significant difference in hind limb locomotion as a result of reducing girth pressures.
Wow.
Who thought it? So that really was probably, I would always say, and I present it still now as one of our most iconic projects, because it's the first study where we linked reduction in pressure with increased range of motion and symmetry.
So is this because the horse is feeling the pressure across the girth and tucks up at the back maybe? and feels tense? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
Exactly, all of that and above, and so then that was really the key point, one of the key points. And then we applied the same concept to, well, we've got saddle pressures, we know what that does, but what if we try and modify saddles? And so if we can reduce pressure, does that have an effect? And we did the same with bridles. If you can reduce bridle pressures with modification, does that affect the locomotion?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Wow.
And another interesting thing is that, you know, when we reduce bridle pressures obviously on the head, because that's where the bridle goes.
It's okay. I'm not that stupid.
In case you're anywhere. We actually recorded changes in hind limb kinematics. So I really cannot and that's probably what's been the biggest learning and the inspiration still to keep doing this sort of research, is that if we can make horses more comfortable with tack modifications, we can improve the global apparatus of the horse. And that has obviously a performance benefit, but overriding all of that, it has a welfare and comfort benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that has to be, in our research, we only take on a research project that conforms to improving welfare, reducing the risk, and also performance. So they are our three fundamentals.
That's where we're very much aligned there, I tell you. We can chime with that one because horse welfare is so important. And just looking after the animals that love us and do so much for us, it's absolutely incredible. I tell you what, so without giving too much away, because I know that people can join on your webinars and your seminars, and that's your business, and this is just a chat. So I don't want you to give too much away, but what could people expect if they engage with your webinars?
So, well, a little bit of what you're getting now, really. Obviously me, but we've run 2 series now, and just basically going over various aspects to do with our research. For example, the effect that the saddle has on equine locomotion, and then another one on bridles, and then rider asymmetry. Laterality is something we're working on now. Are horses left-handed, right-handed? Yes, they are. How does this affect locomotion? Well, that's currently being investigated. So anything to do with horse saddle rider interaction, laterality is what people will get.
Just rewind you a little bit there. You just said that are horses left-handed or right-handed? Yes, they are. And I thought, well, I'm gonna pick you up on that one. I'm not going to disagree with you, obviously, but we noticed. I mean, I watch a lot of dressage, as you can imagine. I watch dressage most days, every day, all day long. So I get to see a lot of horses on both reins, and to me, it's glaringly obvious that pretty much most horses I see up to a medium or advanced medium level have a bias to one rein rather than the other. In all paces, obviously not in what, but you know, it's quite obvious. You can see them not enjoying, and some will counter better on one side than they will the other. It's really clear. So, are you saying we need to train the horse's brain in a way that they would do with a footballer with the right and left foot?
Oh, now you're getting to the nitty gritty of it all. No, I'm not saying that because we don't know that yet. But what we do know, what we do in training is we're trying to create an ambidextrous animal or an ambidextrous athlete that can perform tasks on the left rein and right rein of a similar quality. But I'm talking more in a motor level. We know horses have a audio preference. They listen with one ear. When they recognize the whinny of a stranger, they listen with their right ear. When they played a whinny, sorry, ignore all of that. When they played a whinny, of a stranger, they listen with their left ear. And when they are played a whinny with a horse they recognize, they listen with their right ear. This
fascinates me. Absolutely fascinates me. Yeah, sorry.
And there's other things that I could just go on, but like the way they see, there's evidence that the left eye is a flight eye, the right eye is a processing eye. So if we're riding on Bob the Cob or the Highland Pony at the stables, you put them on the right rein, they see the banner, they run a mile. You put them on the left rein, where the right eye is on the outside, they don't mind. So there is definitely a preference. And we also know, sorry.
No, keep going. Because I'm just thinking of the breeding possibilities with that. Because you could get characteristics from one sire to another to try and counteract that in a breed that you really want to breed?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful with this strategy because we are all one-sided. Like I'm right-handed, I'm not straight. You're right-handed, are you?
Yes.
Yeah. So the horses are the same. So I think if we start modifying it too much, we have to be very careful. But I do think we need to take a bit of responsibility for our understanding our horse's own inherent asymmetries. For example, if you look at how foals graze, and this is where it could come back to breeding, and you watch a long-legged foal but with a relatively short head and a short neck and head, they will splay their limbs out. They will have a wide separation of the forelimbs. And what that ends up doing, as being shown in the studies, to create the hoof angle to become flat, one of them, and the other one to become upright.
Got you.
And so then the horse's structures, they don't have a bony connection connecting the forelimbs to the trunk. It's just the forelimbs are attached with soft tissue, the thoracic sling musculature. So stick with me. You got one leg forward, one leg.
Are we there, guys? Are we there, guys? Come on, stick. Yes, we're there.
One leg forward, one leg upright, and then they carry on through their early years up to 3. And so then the scapula can start to change its position because of the hoof angle position. And what do we put on behind the scapula? The saddle. Right. So you can see that the foal's preference to graze with the same leg forward for a period of time, how it can change the other structures.
Hey, look, here's Mrs. Equidance. She'll understand what you're saying. He's talking about scapulars to me and stuff like that.
Put me on the spot now.
Anyway, so Kelly's just turned up in the room, Mrs. Equidance, and she is the scientist, and we're talking to the scientist, and we're just getting to very scientific stuff right here. So I was beginning to drown in my own ignorance, but luckily, no, I get what you're saying. It's really important. Obviously,
but what I was just going to finish off saying there is we can take ownership. Like we're doing a study where we've been looking at how much time people spend on one rein to the other, and there seems to be a bias that riders spend more time on one rein than the other. And it's that sort of detail that we can really look at in trying to create this ambidextrous animal.
So let's go back to the seminars you're doing, the webinars you're doing. I don't like the word webinar. It's a seminar online. Let's go back to those are the sort of things that people can engage with you one-on-one on?
No, so these are we broadcast all over the world. People can obviously tune in, watch a evidence-based presentation, which is all presenting our research and our colleagues from around the world. And of course, they can ask questions, which I answer. But we've also very fortunate with some of our connections to invite other presenters from around the globe to present their own research. And we've had some of the best researchers in the world on our platform. This year we've had Professor Kevin Hausler, Dr. Nicole Rombach, and Professor Marie Rodin, huge amounts of people, just to name a few. And we've got a summit later in October, not news yet, but I'm telling you first, where we've got 8 different researchers from around the globe presenting all of their research. And on that day is associated with limb loading and hoof surface interaction. We've had Professor Hilary Clayton,
you lost me. All these names. I thought you said Hillary Clinton then. I was like, anyway, so soon you're going to have Dr. Kelly Louise Jewell, of course, with her thermal imaging, helping you with your data as well when she finishes her PhD very soon. We've got a question. Hang on, what's the question?
The question is from me. I was actually interested in whether or not the lack of ambidexterity in training was related to left and right-handedness of the rider.
Oh, the lack of ambidexterity. So is the lack of ambidexterity in the animal related to the left and right bias of the rider?
We don't know that experimentally yet, I don't believe. That is something that's being looked at. There is a huge wealth now of laterality coming online, so that is something we're really interested in. We don't know is the honest answer. We did a study 7 years ago, I think, where we asked elite riders to sit on the pressure mat. They were all right-handed, but they had more pressure when they said they were straight. They had a bias on the left seat bone.
Wow.
and they were all right-handed. So I did a study, gosh, years ago now, where we found asymmetry in the right hind, and I thought, wonder if this is the way we drive. So I've got a friend, a colleague in Canada, which that's another story you can ask me about, and they drive obviously different. But we saw the same trends: right hind asymmetry. So it wasn't that differently. But yeah, we need to do more work on that. We don't know enough yet.
I definitely have a bigger dip in the left-hand side of my seat in the Merc. That's just because I'm overweight, not like you, Russell. No.
Well, I don't know about that. I've got a lockdown tum-tum. I have to say, I've been running 5 times this week.
Oh, running? What's that? You don't have children. I've got children running around the house. That's enough running for me, my friend. Anyway, listen, I've got a question from Marcel Ward, and Marcel is asking you, have you done any research on narrow twist saddles? Now, I'm not familiar with these, so I'm asking you directly, any research, because apparently they've been highly recommended, but what's your thoughts on that?
So, sorry, just to clarify, the narrow twist saddle's been highly recommended?
No, this is just what I've read from the thread from the person who's asked the question.
Okay, so yeah, good evening, Marcel. Hope you're well. I would straight away just point you to our Facebook page, a little plug there, because we've just done a blog on this, so you can have a read there. But to give you an idea, we looked at exactly this question and published the paper where we looked at the saddles that were fitted but had a narrow twist. And just to be familiar with what the narrow twist is, if you look down at the top of a saddle, as it comes in where you're sitting and then goes over into the pommel, that is the region I'm talking about. And what we found was that actually there is an area of high pressure directly in the region of T10, T13. And when we, not me, but the team did saddle remodifications to allow more room for the horse, but without compromising the rider's feel. And the narrow twist is largely riders want to be close to the horse, and they may not want to have their hips taken wide away from the horse, so they go for a narrow twist. And so what we did was created a saddle, allowed the horse to have more room at the base of his wither, but didn't compromise the rider. And we reduced the pressure significantly. And what do you think happened when we reduced the pressures, Tony? This is a little question for you now.
Oh, stop asking me scientific questions. Ask Mrs. Equidance. What do you think happened?
I didn't actually listen to the question.
He did. Oh, she was writing another question.
We had an increased range of motion and symmetry in the horse's left and right side. So, just
conclusion then.
What's that?
So narrow twist is not good.
No, and I don't want your listeners to be thinking, oh, I've got a narrow twisted saddle, this is bad. Not at all. Your saddle must be fitted by a qualified saddle fitter who can assess the twist in relation to the horse's conformation. That is the key bit.
It's all relative. Absolutely. It has to be relative.
What one mustn't do is be inspired by a Facebook post that says narrow twist saddle, good for your connection and comfort, and buy it online and think this is great. No, it must be fitted and taken into account all of the horse's conformation, saddle structure, because as I said earlier, horses can feel a fly. Why can they not feel high pressure at the base of their wither, either side of the spine?
Really good answer, Russell. Really good answer. We got more questions there. They're coming in. Hang on, they've written down. Mrs. Equidance, they're coming in thick and fast. Russell, can you cope with this?
Absolutely.
Okay, we got a question from Vicky James. Hi, Vicky James. How are you doing? Russell, what do you recommend as the best choice of girth? Great question, Vicky.
Good question. Good evening, Vicky. So I think this is first thing is a girth that fits. That is crucial, and I think that's what we've learned from the study. You'll be aware of the study that we worked with, and I'm not here to say that you should go and get that girth per se, because that's not what it's about. But you really must look at girth design. Things that you can think about with your girth is making sure that the buckles are not low down behind the elbows. So if you're in a dressage saddle, make sure the buckles are as high up as possible. And if you're using a training aid of any sort, make sure it doesn't go around the girth. Make sure it's attached to the outside of the girth, because otherwise you induce have the risk of sternum pressure. And in terms of girth shapes, obviously one that is anatomically shaped, allowing the elbows range of motion, and one that is preferably lined with a pressure reducing material that can reduce the pressures. So the girth we tested obviously had all of those elements, but at the time there was no other girth like it, and there's a lot more on the market now. So you can look at other girths, and I'm big enough to say that the girth we tested is as widely successful, but not every horse seems to, riders don't report it's not a miracle girth. So it really must be based on individual horses, a girth that fits, but not violating the girth length and the attachment. But certainly an anatomically shaped one and a pressure reducing one would be advantageous.
I think that's a really good answer there. Thank you very much. And of course, any of our viewers who are watching tonight and enjoying what Dr. Russell has to say, they can get hold of you, of course. Obviously, it's your job. So what's the best way of them booking you to come and see them?
You can, the best thing to do is follow us on Facebook. That's a starting point to keep up to date with our news activities, and just have a look at our website, centaurbiomechanics.co.uk, and then just drop an email. And I'm fortunate that I have someone helping me in the office, and who can answer any questions.
Even though it's a deaf dog.
In the deaf dog, yes.
Right, it's very popular tonight. We've still got a couple hundred viewers, going on here, and I've got lots of questions coming in. So another question is from Karen Dance. Hello, Karen. How you doing? A question for Russell. Can your evaluation techniques identify orthopedic issues?
That's a good question. So one of the things to make clear is that the MOCAP system is not a diagnostic, and so orthopedic issues in terms of how the horse is moving, yes, but in terms of diagnosing where that is no. The evidence is not there yet, and I don't think it ever will be. But how we use the system is in the case of pre and post diagnostic analgesia with the veterinarians. So we trot the horse up as a baseline, and then the vets will do an intervention, and then we trot the horse up again to see how the movement patterns have changed. And that's really where I see it working really well.
So it's an adjunct technology rather than a diagnostic.
Yeah, definitely. So it is useful in those multi-limb lamenesses, where diagnosis is hard, but it's certainly in conjunction with veterinarians. Absolutely, it's there to aid clinical decision making, not replace.
Fabulous answer, Karen. I hope that helped. We've got another question from Debbie Elric. Hi, Debbie. How you doing? What are your thoughts on racing 2-year-old thoroughbreds?
Good evening, Debbie. Good question. I think if you mean specifically racing, I think we have to be really mindful of the horse's skeletal maturity. And we know from other studies that the bones are not fully developed until a latter age. If you're meaning training, there is some evidence that doing light training with young horses helps with modelling.
Yeah.
I think we have to just be really clear on what light training is, and light is light, proportionate to the horse's age. But in terms of racing, we've done quite a bit of research now in racing. And I think the industry is changing, which is good for the horse. But I think, we really must be mindful of the demands on young horses.
Can I just ask at this point, Russell? I'm sorry, I hope that's okay, Debbie. It's a good answer, but of course we're all very concerned about horses, whatever discipline they're in. Can I just ask, Russell, do you ride?
Yes.
You see, I'm the imposter here. I'm the one who doesn't ride.
Yeah, I used to show jump to a fairly decent height, and then set up Centaur, had a crashing fall at Hickstead, and thought, that's not quite going to fit the business model of starting a new business and being injured. So stopped that, and then got some lovely dressage horses now, and going to start doing a bit of jumping, I think, over the summer, getting a bit itchy feet.
I've just been watching now. I started watching the jumping because I was doing a broadcast for British Breeding last week on the jumping stallions, and so I had to edit a few videos together with jumping. Now, I haven't watched much jumping in the past, coming from a dressage kind of camp, obviously, and I absolutely loved watching the jumping. And then I thought, my God, imagine being on the back of a horse, jumping 140 plus. What a thrill. I mean, roller coasters do one. This is incredible. So actually, you heard it here first. I am going to start riding a little bit. And my first lesson is going to be with Sir Lee Pearson.
Very good. Well done, you.
It may be an absolute car crash, but you heard it here last week, folks. It's going to happen. So, yeah, we will be doing this. We're going to do a little kind of 3-day crash course or something. And apparently he's going to have me cantering. No, not literally a crash course, Russell. It's okay. I'm fat. I'll bounce. No, I won't. I'm not that fat. I've lost a lot of weight, actually, haven't I, babe? I've lost a lot of weight. And I'm going to lose more weight because I think in order for me to ride, I want to be a little bit lighter than I am right now for exactly the reasons we've been talking about tonight. But we ain't going to go there. Right,
I can't possibly agree, but all I would say is that when you're trotting around, it's 2 times your body mass, your weight in force going on the horse's back. So.
Yeah. No, this is why I haven't ridden to date, because I've just felt like I'm a big bloke, you know. I'm not particularly like round, but I'm a big guy. I just wanted to feel, if I'm going to be on the back of a horse, I want to feel a little bit lighter on them, I think. That's Good. Just my thought anyway. Right, another question from Fields Wickham Weiren. Is that right? Fields, hello Fields, how you doing? What part of the horse is most, hang on a minute, biomechanically misunderstood? What a good question. What part of the horse is most biomechanically misunderstood?
Oh God, I don't know if oh gosh. Well,
I love putting you on the spot. That's fantastic.
Yeah, this is like my nightmare. These questions, not these questions, but this situation. There's no script, no.
I am your nightmare, Russell.
No, you're not. So I'm going to say, actually, a current area that we're working on right now, and I may blow my own trumpet, so forgive me. But what we are quantifying as we speak is spinal kinematics of the horse under the saddle,
right?
And only because of the advances in technology can we measure what the back's doing under the saddle. So I'm going to promote our own bit of work there. For the last 4 years we've been studying the spine and how it changes with the rider in various dressage movements and in show jumping horses, and I think it's super interesting. We've got 2 papers under review as we speak, and coming out soon. But yeah, I think that's an area we don't know enough about. We know a lot, we don't know enough, is what happens to the horse's back during locomotion, but with the rider on.
This is fascinating. So does this correlate with kissing spines and things like that?
We don't know that yet. That's not an area we're going down at this stage. But kissing spines, you know, I think for me personally, kissing spine has become it's not so much now, a buzzword.
Yeah.
Every horse had it, but I think that's possibly due to imaging techniques that improved and evolved.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we think that foals can have kissing spine, there's other reasons. And if you've got a horse on the table, the kissing spine is no longer there. So there's other reasons why kissing spine happens. For example, is it as a result of poor posture of the horse? Can we do posture exercises to improve the horse's global posture to help support the back? And there's some great work being done on that as we speak too by another group.
My word, this is all very fascinating. We've got more questions coming in. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're not asleep yet, so that's good news.
I'm certainly not asleep. Believe me, I'm not. The lady sitting behind me here is the scientist, and she's clearly buzzing off this conversation. But I absolutely chime with my wife on this because all these sort of things really fascinate me. If it's to do with the horse's welfare at the end of the day, Russell, I'm super interested. Every guest we've had on has been horse-centric. We only have people on who care about the horses first and foremost, whatever they are. Trainers, riders, scientists, whatever they are. So, yeah, that's really super cool for us. I've got a question from Catherine Boyd. Hello, Boydie. How you doing? What were your original goals with Centaur? What was the original goals with Centaur?
Good evening. Well, the original goal was I really wanted to run my own business. So that was getting enough of a client base that I could leave my existing employment at the swimming pool. That was my first goal. And then the next, well, not next goal, but the other goals were certainly research related. You know, I remember fondly the day I published my first paper as lead author. That was definitely a big goal. The other goal, right from word go, was I wanted to do my PhD. And that I started. I got it a couple of years ago now. And that was probably one of my, you know, biggest goals. And then the goals carry on, don't they? So I have more goals now, and certainly around the research publication area, yes.
So we're at this point now with Centaur. We've been through this horrible period with the pandemic and lockdown, and I know you and I both had to readjust and look at things in a slightly different way and come out on top anyway, because we're survivors. But where from here onwards with Centaur? What's the really exciting things that are getting you going for the next 6 months, 2 years, 10 years?
Yeah, good question. I ask myself that daily. You know, like if you want to get in my head for a couple of hours, it's very upside down crazy and all whoop the loops. I really, really like, I wake up and I'm just so excited about vertebra. So I'm like, oh my God, what is the back doing? So that's what I'm working on for, like say, the last 4 years, is the horse's spine. I'm really, really excited for the next 10 years with the advances in the technology we've got now, and the studies data we've already got, and new data coming online, as to where this area of research is going to go. But my main focus is really just keep doing research to get publications to help to really get Centaur's name in the history books as improving. I really want to improve our awareness so we can help these athletes, horses and riders, to ultimately improve welfare, but also to help their performance. So that's what makes me tick. And I always remain like, I don't know if you I read the other day, I read my first paper and I was like, gosh, I waffle a lot, whereas now I'm much sharper with what I'm trying to say. And so it's, you know, you evolve, but I definitely want to keep doing all of the research and present and sharing. One of my goals when I started was that if we do all this research, that's great, but it can't just sit on a shelf. And so I'm really passionate about sharing what we know. Because if we hold on to it, how are we helping any horses, you know, other than people that can read the papers? So let's share it. So I'm a big sharer.
That's fabulous. And one thing I know that my wife's interested in is with the bridle pressures. I mean, one thing she posted today was about a noseband with a profile that was too wide. Is that right?
Yeah, the way his face doesn't taper, so it doesn't allow for a noseband that's raised in the wrong area. He needs something that's very low profile, because the cheek pieces just put pressure. That's where his molars are. So I'm very aware of that. And
we were talking about facial expressions on horses. When you were talking about the facial expressions, was that you know, with the bridle on or off or both? And let's talk a little bit about the head.
Yeah, so the facial expressions research isn't my area of research, and from the studies that were done, I think it was performed without, during, whilst putting it on, during exercise. But in terms of the bridle pressures, you know, I think Kelly's absolutely right about noseband fit and design. And we found astronomically, when we had our pressure mat underneath the noseband, we found astronomically, excuse me, high pressures under the nose band, higher pressures than we've ever recorded. So just to be mindful of that.
That's really, that's really super exciting.
Is that due to a passive tightness or the horse balking against the pressure? Is there
good question. So the nosebands were done up as traditional 2 fingers. So we believe it was the horse's to the noseband. However, and again, point you into the blog that I put on the Facebook, if you look at what we looked at in the headpiece pressures, when we got dramatically high pressures at the TMJ region, so the temporal mandibular joint on the side of the horse's head, when we reduced that pressure, then the locomotion improved, but then the oral displacement settled. So I think noseband pressures, yes, but we mustn't neglect headpiece pressures, because if we've got pressure up here, if you think of like a swimmer, they call it supraorbital neuralgia. A swimmer, where they wear goggles, they go for a swim, they were reporting headaches after a couple of hours.
Because of the pressure.
Absolutely.
I mean, I get it from wearing my glasses for too long.
There you go. So it's the same with the horses, and we put a noseband strap underneath the headpiece. There's a right direct insert of pressure going into that area.
Wow.
You have people that have bridles that are too big and the buckles sit too high. So that would be another problem.
So buckles on top of the head we found created forelimb asymmetry, and we also found underneath the buckle there was the risk of high pressure points from the buckle.
This is incredible. Absolutely. I hope you could hear Kelly's questions then, because she's a long way away. She needs to come a bit closer because my microphone's here.
Oh, sorry. the other, very interested in what you said about the noseband. Would there be, or has there been a study done looking at like rain strain gauge versus noseband pressure?
Oh.
Good question. I think there was one study done. I'm not overly familiar on the outcomes. The rain tension is something I've got some rain tensions here. The rain signal is very chaotic, and what we don't know yet is it the horse pulling against the rain or the rider pulling against the horse. And we did a study, quite a few years ago now, where we lunged horses on the left and right rein with training aids on, and we found regardless of direction, they had more pressure on the left side of the bit than the right. No rider on, just direction change. We then trotted the horses in a straight line with two handlers attached to the cavesson, and obviously the rain gauge is on, and we found more pressure on one side than the other.
Interesting.
So we are looking at currently is movement related to rain tension, and we believe you can detect forelimb asymmetry in the rain tension signal. You can detect the forelimb impact in the canter signal. So we don't quite know, is it coming from the rider or from the horse? It's a relation.
That's fabulous. I'm so sorry, folks, that you couldn't hear Kelly. She sat on the sofa, and I've been asking her to come up because this is the only mic we've got here. So if there's any further questions from Kelly, which are very valid questions, I'll make sure she comes up and literally shouts at my neck. She's got a Zoom call. Oh, right, okay. she's off. She was on a call to the USA earlier about business with her thermal imaging, and then she put the kids to bed, and then she came down. It's all go here, folks. It's all go here. Okay, let's see if we've got any other questions here. Let's have a look. So a question from Eileen Fuller. I often find brow bands are too short, pulling the headpiece to the back of the ear, causing pressure. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, straight into the back of the ears, the cartilage, then putting pressure on the cartilage. Yeah, so brow bands are something I see all the time that are too short and pulling the headpiece forward. So check your brow band fit. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's something we've been hearing quite regularly, isn't it, recently? Trust the science. And, for whatever the other theories, whatever the conspiracies, whatever the say-so on social media and the go-around and the gossip, we've got to trust the science.
You have, and I'm a researcher, so I do agree, but I think you've got to review the science, and that's something you should really, when you see claims, look at the details. Study design is a key bit, statistical analysis, the sample size is obviously a key bit. Science done on one or two horses is really, it's not such a, is it an exact? So I think, yes, embrace the science, challenge and check it, but certainly is your starting point to start making those informed decisions. Yes, for sure.
So moving on, what I love about you, Russell, is there's not like this, all of a sudden, there's not this Centaur range of things to purchase. It's like all of a sudden there isn't these girths and saddles. You haven't gone, I'm just going to go for the money. You are always thinking about the horse and the welfare and the science, and we love that in you. That is absolutely fabulous. So we encourage people to join on your webinars have you got a book out yet?
No, see, I told you there was no business model. You're showing up my business strategy now.
No, it's the same as us. We're making no money, mate. We're just doing this and having wonderful time and meeting the most amazing people and making £0. It doesn't. It's like, okay, the mortgage will pay itself somehow. I promise you. But we're the same as you because we're passionate. We're absolutely passionate about what we do. We're passionate about horses.
Yeah, and passion breeds success. Hard work breeds success, and I love hard work. I love getting up at 5:30 in the morning and doing my bits and pieces, riding my horses.
I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. Kelly's up doing the horses, and then my 3-year-old gets up. Daddy, can we watch Sea Babies?
But to answer your question, I don't have a book out. We do have various products, but that's not the motivation.
No.
We don't have a book out yet. There's a book I'm writing on our research, but I'm also wanting to write another book, actually, which is slightly left of centre. I want to write an inspirational book for dyslexic people. Because if I tell you, when I was 9, and I remember my maths tutor saying, "I don't bother coming to class. You're gonna fail." Everything when I was at a different school. I would just love to, if I could just inspire one person to believe in themselves, like I somehow did. I don't know how, because at the time, I remember that was not a great time when you're growing up, being bullied, etc. But if I could just inspire one person to have the fun I've had on this adventure, then I would dedicate a whole year or 2 to writing a book for that one person, because I really feel strongly that dyslexia is just great. I love it because it makes me think laterally. It makes me look at spreadsheets and get positively excited.
You and I are so similar. Oh my God, ADHD makes me an absolute creative. If I'm not creating, I'm depressed. So it's like,
so I look at it as an asset and a talent. But
100%.
So that's why I'd love to write a book on that.
So I think we're going to leave it on that point there, Russell, because that's an absolutely fabulous ending. I'm just going to talk to the audience. Stay right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had some fantastic guests on all through both series, especially this series, obviously, as we've gained some traction. But Russell's a fantastic guy. If you want to get involved, please go to the website. Please go and engage. Book him for clinics, have a look at what's going on, join a webinar, anything. But this guy really knows what he's doing. And it's people like this which actually move the welfare of your horses forward. And that's not just in this country, that's worldwide. Russell, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. And it's been wonderful to get to know you. Don't go anywhere. Your screen's going to go off. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. We'll have a quick chat afterwards.
Can I just say one more thing to them?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah. So thank you ever so much for joining tonight, and I just want to leave you with one thing. We have a saying within our research: you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, but you can make it thirsty. And that's really my passion for tonight, and what we do is to make people thirsty, to look at, can we make it better? So with that, I thank you and wish you safe travels and good night.
We'll speak to you in a second. You've been an absolutely wonderful guest. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. What an absolutely fantastic guest. Again, someone who thinks more about the horses than anything else. Oh, honestly, I can't value that enough. Wonderful. We hope you enjoyed tonight. Now, listen, just a couple of things before I go. Again, if you enjoy our programs and what we do, they are free. We don't get any money. These guys don't get paid any money at all. None of the guests, they've all come on out of the kindness of their hearts to share things with you and to keep you occupied and interested during lockdown. If you want to catch up on the series, just go to our website. It's quite simple. You can go to, hang on a minute, I've got to find it. Equidance, here it is. Go to www.equidance.co.uk. That's www.equidance.co.uk. And at the top, you'll see a little tab that says Equidance Live. Now, all of the previous series from all of our wonderful guests are on there for you to watch on demand, and they will stay there. So please go and enjoy at your leisure. Wonderful. That leaves me with next week. We have the most amazing Tristan Tucker, their TRT method. That's as long as everything's gone well with childbirth. And then that's going to be the end of the series. However, it won't be the end of Equidance Live, because we're going to do specials, and we'll let you all know about the specials. But if you'd like to be on the mailing list, please, please, please email this email to get yourself included on the mailing list. It's mrs.equidance@gmail.com. That's mrs.equidance@gmail.com. Just say, I would like to be on the mailing list. We'll copy it and put it on our spreadsheet, and we will notify you of anything coming up. Fabulous. I don't think there's anything else to tell you about other than that if you want dressage music, get in quick, because everyone knows the competitions are starting again soon, and that's what we do. And we can't wait to get back to doing more and more edits on this computer right here for you guys. So you've got wonderful music you can go out and love and enjoy riding to. Thank you so much for watching again. We've really enjoyed being here. We've really enjoyed meeting Russell. Good night and speak again soon. Bye.